5 is trying to solve problems that haven't occurred yet. Oh, I think most human beings are addicted to this. Again, goes back to our primitive human brain. Don't do it. It's a waste of valuable resources. I condition myself out of this, and then I don't let other people put me in that space. So whenever someone comes to me and they're like, "Oh my God, what if this happens?" or "What if that happens?" and I'm like, we will worry about it and figure it out when and if that happens. I talked about this in my book as well, that when I was younger in my 20s and even in my early 30s, I used to lay up worrying about things, about my children, all the stuff that literally hadn't happened. I wasted precious life force energy, precious time worrying about things that didn't happen. And then later on, when I thought they were going to happen, they didn't happen because my circumstances had changed by that time. So what I've learned is that our present consciousness, it's not very good at anticipating future problems. So why on earth should you waste time? Now, so I don't waste time solving problems that haven't happened yet. Is number 6 way that you are acting like a peasant is deciding the ending before God's final act. So what I've noticed in my life is that when something happens, and I used to do this a lot as a teenager and in my 20s, where something bad would happen or something that I was judging as bad would happen, and I would be freaking the F out and like panicking and having panic attacks and being anxious and spending hours and hours and hours of resources, like energetic resources, worrying about something. And then a year later, when I was on the end of it, I would say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that happened because I learned this, and this happened as a result of that, and I wouldn't change a thing." I did this repeatedly with so many areas of my life until I got to my early 30s and I was like, "Oh my God, every single bad thing that happened to me," I'm using hand quotes, air quotes here for those of you guys listening on the podcast and on YouTube podcast and can't see, what I realized is that I was judging that thing as bad before God's final act. God's final act was, and then she gets to thrive. And then she becomes a millionaire as a result of that. And then she becomes happily married. And then she's in her dream body. But before God was like, "Ta-da!" I was like, "Oh no, I can't believe this is happening and my life is ruined and this happened and that happened." So in my early 30s, uh, I realized that I had been doing this my whole life. So then after that point, if something happened, even if I thought it was air quotes bad or the world was telling me this is bad, I would say, wait a minute, Mina. You don't know how this is going to end. God hasn't done ta-da yet. God hasn't, set the final act yet. Like this is an ongoing play. And so now I don't judge anything as good or bad or whatever. Like I'm just in it, experiencing it, and I let the thing play out. Number 7 way that you are acting like a peasant, and I need you to stop it, is not trusting yourself. I can't tell you how many amazing, brilliant people I work with every single day that have created amazing things on this planet. I mean, I'm talking about scientists, CEOs, engineers, doctors, influencers, reality TV stars, authors, everyone. And then they're like not trusting themselves, right? Well, what if I mess this up? Or 10 years ago, I did this. Or when I was a child, and I'm like, "Babe, honey buns, that's not you anymore. Like you are literally doing inner work. You're here right now. You're investing in your inner work. You're rewiring your brain. You have new embodiment. You are not that version of you that made that mistake 20 years ago. You are not that version of you that made that mistake when you were 5, when you're 40 now, right? Like you're always changing. You're always growing. And sometimes we are changing inwardly, we're learning new things, but that part of us that needs to trust us is still judging us from something we did 35 years ago when we were in diapers. Like That's peasant consciousness. That doesn't make any freaking sense, okay? You are not the version of you that you were even a week ago, especially if you are doing your inner work. And if you're watching my content, babe, you're doing your inner work, okay? So you are not like the average person. Every time you're doing your inner work, you have to understand that you're compounding, you're collapsing time. So what the average human who is not doing their inner work, what they learn in like maybe 10 years of life experiences, you learn in a week because you are constantly rewiring yourself, you're constantly learning new things, you're learning new embodiments, you're trying new things, you're expanding, you're collapsing, you're growing, right? So trust yourself, okay? I don't care what you did them years ago. I don't care because that's not you anymore. This is you. Now it's a new version, and you need to trust this version because this version has access to new information, new ways of being, okay? But we forget to trust ourselves.